Hey everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to Cinefessions, where we talk all things media. And today is volume 6 of correcting my most embarrassing movie blind spots. So at the beginning of 2025, literally within like the first week of the year, I believe it was, I posted a video going over 12 of what I considered at the time my most embarrassing movies that I just hadn't watched yet. I talked about 3 of those earlier this year, and admittedly, I am quite a bit behind on this, but now I am officially halfway done. So today is with volume 6, we're going to talk about 3 more. We'll talk about King Kong, Arrival, and First Blood. All obviously first time watches for me. So I'm just going to give some quick thoughts on all of these and go from there. I'll give my shame meter, how ashamed I am that I hadn't watched these until now, and then my final star rating on all 3 of these. So that's it, guys. Let's not waste any more time at all. Let's dive right into volume 6 of my most embarrassing movie blind spots. I'll go through these in the order I watched them, which means we'll start off with 1933's King Kong, and this one is directed by Marion C. Cooper and Ernest B. Schudsack. I was going to butcher those, but fortunately they're on the back of the box here, so that's always a good thing. But anyway, this one is a bit notable to me, simply because, and if I'm wrong, let me know down below, but I believe King Kong is often cited as the movie that has one of the first novelizations written that corresponded with the release of this film. And as someone who is a novelization collector, as you probably know if you watch the channel, that's a pretty big deal to me. And it's a kaiju film. It's King Kong, right? I'm a huge horror fan, a huge sci-fi fan. I should have seen this one well before my 39th birthday, which is when I watched this. But so my shame meter on this, I am going to give an 8 out of 10. It is quite high. I really should have just seen this movie prior to this. Now, my thoughts on this are probably going to, I don't want to say upset, because you should never really be upset about somebody else's opinion, but my thoughts on this might be different than your own, and I totally respect that. Keep in mind, I'm watching this for the first time as a 39-year-old. If I watched this when I was a kid, I might have much different opinion of it, but this is a movie, and I feel like I repeat myself often when I do these correcting my embarrassing blind spot videos, but I respect more than I enjoyed. It's a fine movie. King Kong is a good movie. It's just something that I didn't love as much as I was really hoping that I might love. I'm not going to go into a synopsis of King Kong. Everybody knows what King Kong's about. What shocks me most about this one, though, is if you look at the trailer, which is available on this Blu-ray, if you know anything about King Kong or seen the marketing material, so much of that, and frankly, I think the entire trailer is set on Manhattan, right, in the city of New York, where the end of this movie takes place. They don't get to New York until about 20 minutes left in the film. And that is insane to me. I wish there was so much more done in the city than on Kong Island, or Skull Island, rather, whatever they call it in this movie. I wish there was just more done there. What you get on the island is pretty good, but so much of it is, I feel like a little bit of the impact, I guess I'll say, is lost today. Because all I kept thinking to myself is how kind of silly it looked with some of that stop motion. And I know you might not agree with that, and that's totally fine. But just coming into it right now, I just noticed that stop motion, how very obvious it was. And some of the aspects made me chuckle a little bit. Maybe that's just because I'm immature, but that's my reaction to a lot of this stop motion. It doesn't look bad. It's very obvious what they're doing here, and some of it does look a little silly with the way that it's done. Still, very respectable what they were able to do here. What I really liked about this is just how violent King Kong is. I don't remember him being that violent in like Kong Skull Island, for example, which is kind of my frame of reference because that's the movie I've seen prior to this. I just don't remember him being that vicious, but I loved that about him here. He is like chomping on people to death. He's stomping on them. He's throwing them off cliff sides. Like, he is a violent creature, and I loved that. Really, King Kong is just a story of, the white man coming to somewhere maybe they don't belong and just ruining virtually everything, essentially. That's kind of the story that's being told here, but I think it's done well. It's just something that I didn't have as good of a time with as I was hoping. Something else I really appreciated was just the fact that you get some additional creatures at, the island. I thought that was really cool. I just don't remember that in Skull Island. Maybe I'm wrong and let me know, but I don't recall that being an aspect of that movie. It felt a little bit like another movie I watched, maybe The Land That Time Forgot, I think is what it's called. It reminded me quite a bit of that, which I think came out after King Kong, so I'm sure it was inspired by it, but because of the different creatures that were there, it just made me think of that movie, and I really liked that aspect of it. But, this is one, like I said, I really appreciate what they were doing. I really respect how they went about this and everything, but just in terms of my entertainment value, it wasn't quite as high as I was hoping it was going to be. I guess the last thing I'll mention is you have to keep in mind what year this movie was made, because the lone female character in this is very much treated like a female in the 1930s, looked at like they can't do much and the men have to come in and protect her, and that's just the way it was back then. Right or wrong, that's how it was. And so I'm not giving, this movie any less stars because of that, but it's something to keep in mind when you're approaching it. Maybe as, like me, as a new viewer today, you might not love the female representation in this film, and that's okay. It is a product of its time. It is what it is, so keep that in mind. But either way, I guess I'll leave it there because I don't really have much else to say about this one. I'm glad I finally watched it, but I don't see myself going back to this one anytime soon. The original Godzilla, for my money, is just a notably more enjoyable film than the original King Kong. But again, that's just probably because I watched that one first. Now, I will mention, I own this really cool release of this. At one point, I think this was out of print and worth quite a bit of money. I have no idea if that's still the case. I don't believe so, but I think this is just awesome because it has like it's a digibook, right? I believe it's what they call these. And it has a lot of different shots from the movie and publicity stills and things like that. Some, newly commissioned artwork and an essay in here as well. So this is a really cool release of the movie, and I'm so happy that I own it in this way. There's a great shot from the movie. But yeah, for my money, I love the stuff when it's done like in the city. I just wish there was more of that part of it. But King Kong, good movie, but not personally one of my favorites. So I will give King Kong from 1933 3 out of 5 stars. Worth watching, but that's really all there is to it for this one, for me anyway.
Please welcome back to The Late Show, Denis Villeneuve.
Denis Villeneuve. Denis Villeneuve. Denis Villeneuve. Okay. Moving on to the second film in today's video, we have Arrival. And this one is from 2016, directed by Denis Villeneuve. I hope I said that right. I just watched some YouTube videos to make sure I get it right, and I think I did, but let me know down below. But anyway, this is a movie that I really have wanted to see for the longest time, and I'm so happy that I finally did. So with Arrival, we are dealing with these crafts that arrive on planet Earth, and Amy Adams is playing a professional linguist where she's pulled in to try to figure out why they're here, trying to develop some type of communication with these alien spacecrafts to figure out what's going on, what they want, what are they gonna do, right, essentially. And so that's the story of Arrival. And this one moved quite slowly, and at the beginning, maybe even the first half, I wasn't sure how I felt about the movie, but then as things kind of progress and as the story unravels, I just felt myself being pulled in more and more throughout this, and by the end of it, I loved this movie. The ending is so powerful with what it does. Frankly, it's basically a whisper moment between two of the characters. I mean, I got goosebumps right now just thinking about it. It is so perfectly done. I think I can say now that Denis Villeneuve is one of the greatest directors of our time. He is utterly brilliant in everything I've seen of him. Enemy is a fantastic movie with Jake Gyllenhaal. I have that one behind me. It is so well done. It is weird and just strange. Maybe requires repeat viewings, but it is brilliant. And then I saw Prisoners from him, just as a true crime fanatic. Oh my God, that movie was made for me. The cast is insane. It's damn near a perfect movie. I love that movie. And then of course, we have Dune Part 1 and Part 2, arguably some of the greatest movies, sci-fi movies at least, that have been made over the past few years here. They are just stunning in every sense of the word. And now that I can add Arrival to that list, while I wouldn't put this at the top of my of his filmography, I definitely can see this moving up with repeat viewings because it's subtle and it's beautiful, and the way the story's told just reels you in as you watch it. And it's It's the mark of excellent directing. But not only the directing in this is fantastic, the acting is as well, as you would expect, with Amy Adams, Jeremy Renner playing basically her sidekick. She's the English side of things, and he's the math side of things. And then you have Forrest Whitaker in here as well, who does a fantastic job. So I think the cast on this was excellent. The supporting cast does such a great job of helping establish that we are watching a world that is in panic because we have no idea what's going on with these spacecrafts. It was very reminiscent of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And it's funny because when I was trying to figure out how to pronounce his name correctly, I was watching from Letterboxd. They did like that 4 favorite films, and he mentions Blade Runner and Close Encounters of the Third Kind as kind of his tie for number 4. Very obviously inspired by that movie. But man, for my money, I will take Arrival 1,000 times over Close Encounters of the Third Kind any day of the week. I honestly don't even like Close Encounters all that much. And so Arrival, in my eyes, just does it so much better, even though it is very similar. Close Encounters goes like an auditory route in terms of trying to communicate with these alien spacecrafts, where this goes a different way. But I think what they do here is just so engaging, and it's entertaining as imaginable. It is a little bit slower moving, but I think most people watching this video have probably already seen this, and so they know what I'm talking about. But this definitely, I can see why it ends up on people's favorites list, even from 2016 or from the 20-teens, or just overall an all-time favorite, because it is such a wonderfully made film and really just cements Denis Villeneuve. Oh my gosh, I butchered it. Denis Villeneuve. Oh, I've lost it now. But it cements him as one of my all-time favorite directors. He is outstanding in every movie I've ever seen him direct. Now, I do still have to watch a couple of his big ones, but for the ones I've seen, I absolutely love all of them. So Arrival, my shame meter, this one wasn't quite as high. I'd put this probably at a 6. Like, people just assume you've seen Arrival, especially if you're a sci-fi fan, and I just haven't. So now that I have, I'm very happy to say I did. So I'll put my shame meter at a 6. But in terms of the movie itself, absolutely, everyone needs to see this if you are a fan of this genre. I love alien invasion films, and this is basically that in a way. Not quite something like Signs, which is another all-time favorite, but it's very similar in theme. And so I'm so glad I've watched this one now. The one thing I will mention is that maybe why I'm not giving it a higher star rating, which is so, again, I always say star ratings are so meaningless anyway. It's just kind of a in-the-moment thing, what you feel like. But with this one, how they ended up eventually communicating with these creatures was a little bit unclear to me as the movie went on, but might be something I am able to pick up on more in repeat viewings. But that didn't really affect the overall arc for me, because really from beginning to end, I think it's just so perfectly paced, so intentional in its pacing, that it plays out perfectly in my book. So I am going to give Arrival from 2016 4 out of 5 stars, and I definitely think that could go up if I keep watching this one down the line, which I probably will. So Arrival is must see. Loved this one. And then last but not least today is kind of the crazy action movie in the group here. This is First Blood, of course, the first entry in the Rambo series. This one from 1982, directed by Ted Kotcheff. This is a movie that I really just didn't know what it was coming into it. After having watched it now, I realized I had no idea what this First Blood was all about. I keep wanting to say Rambo, but this, I thought, was like a Defend Your Home style of movie where people were coming to attack him at his home front, and that's not the case at all. This is instead a movie where we have Sylvester Stallone in our Green Beret role as Rambo, John Rambo, and he is going to this town in the beginning of the movie to meet up with one of his friends that he knew from the military. Turns out that friend passed away from cancer that he got while he was in Vietnam. And so that, of course, is very upsetting to him. And he's just walking through the city trying to find some place to eat. Well, a cop pulls up, played by Brian Dennehy, who is excellent in this role, and decides that he doesn't like the look of this guy. And so he's going to escort him out of town. Rambo doesn't like that, so as soon as he gets dropped off outside of town, he turns around and walks back in, and the cop sees him and arrests him, which is ridiculous. What do they call it? Vagrancy, I think, is what he's arrested for. It is absolutely absurd what he's arrested for, but that's just how things go sometimes in a small town, especially in the early 80s, which has much changed. I don't really know, but anyway, that's what sets off this entire thing. him being arrested kind of initiates his PTSD, and because of that, he just goes off on this police force. He escapes and runs into the woods, where that's where the bulk of the movie takes place, is this police force trying to track him down. But of course, because he's a Green Beret and he's been trained up, kind of better than anybody on the planet, he's very good at what he does, so it's very hard to catch him. This whole thing is just so 1980s to me, because so much of this stuff, hopefully, you wouldn't see happening today. But putting this movie in place, in the right context, this is really an enjoyable film. Not at all what I thought it was going to be, but I understand why this one has such a cult following behind it, and why it spawned I think there's 5 Rambo movies now, if I'm not, 4 or 5, I forget. I do own all of them, so I definitely need to continue on in the series, but I'm very intrigued to see where we go from here by the end of this movie. I just is this going to be a repeat of what they did here? I have no idea. So I want to continue on in the series to see where the character of Rambo moves on to. But the movie itself, what was really cool is the actors in this. Not only do you get Brian Dennehy in our main police chief or sheriff, whatever his title is, role, but also, what's his name? David Caruso, I believe, from CSI Miami, plays one of the officers in this as well. Kind of the officer who has a good conscience where the other ones don't. And that's one thing to keep in mind. The police are, without a doubt, the antagonists of this film, where Rambo is our protagonist. So something to keep in mind heading into it. And I think they do that well. I think, the movie wants you to feel this way about the police force. And at least for me, I really did, because they arrested him with no cause whatsoever. And it was just utterly ridiculous, but it works to set up the rest of this movie. But then I forget the guy's name now, but I've been watching through Twin Peaks, and one of the actors from Twin Peaks is also in this movie. And so I thought, I was just seeing some of these supporting casts that I recognize from other shows from the 80s and the 90s and beyond. And so I thought that was really cool. But the cast does a really nice job with this one. No one really stood out as being poor in their role. I thought it was cast really well. But really, this is a movie for Sylvester Stallone. He does such a great job in this, and it's kind of pinnacled by the final monologue that he delivers at the end, which really talks around all of the horrors that he witnessed in Vietnam during the war and why he has this PTSD. Now, of course, it's the early 80s. They don't talk about PTSD, but that's clearly what's happening here. And so I think it's just interesting that you get this take on it, because this is the early 80s. My history is not the best, but I know people that were returning from Vietnam, the soldiers were not greeted with a hero's welcome like they are today necessarily. And so watching how he handled that and how he talks through that, I thought was fascinating. So I think this is just kind of a balls to the wall action movie. There is no depth in this whatsoever outside of Rambo's character, where there's a lot going on internally. And I think it's really cool to see the progression from Rocky to First Blood for Stallone. Much better actor, in my opinion. Not that he did a poor job in Rocky. I just think he's better here in First Blood. And so I really appreciated that about his work in this role as well. But some of the shots here are just so iconic. Him towards the end of the movie with our shot here on the cover with that giant I think it's an M16, is just so cool. Like, man, what a killer character this guy is. He is a full-on baddie. And I see why people loved this movie so much when it was released and why it still has a following today. This is still just a beloved 80s action film. And so I totally understand why. Like, this is such an enjoyable film, and I can't wait to see where else Rambo goes in this series. So excited to continue this, and I'm happy I finally watched it. Now, another one, my shame meter on this, maybe a 4 out of 10. Didn't feel too much shame that I hadn't seen this one. I was more ashamed of myself for not having seen Rocky last year than I was for Rambo, but happy that I've now watched both of the Sylvester Stallone kind of major movies from this era that he led in. And so happy that I've seen this. But I will give First Blood from 1982 3.5 out of 5 stars. Good movie. Not much more than that, but sometimes that's all you need. And I highly recommend First Blood if for whatever reason, like me, you haven't seen this one. You know what? Before I wrap up, I wanted to mention that the 4K disc here for First Blood is one of the more unimpressive that I've seen from my collection. Now, this has a very muted color palette throughout basically the entire film. And so in terms of like HDR or anything like that, there was nothing really that stood out to me as popping like I love to see in some movies. And even the outdoor shots were so muted. Now, I'm sure this is probably better than the Blu-ray looks. I don't know, because I own the Blu-ray. I owned the Blu-ray, but I didn't watch it, obviously. I just upgraded. But I just wasn't impressed with this. So I don't know that this is a significant upgrade from the Blu-ray. I did look at some reviews, and Blu-ray.com, I think, was very high on this 4K disc. But to my eyes, there was really nothing here to write home about. So maybe this is one that if you already have the Blu-ray, you can probably stick to that if it looks decent enough to your eyes, because the 4K probably won't be that much of an upgrade. So I just wanted to toss that in at the end here since I thought about it and I didn't mention it in my review. But yeah, just kind of a lackluster 4K disc in my eyes. All right, 3 more down, which means I am 6 of my blind spots in for 2025. It's already September. Actually, we're at the end of September now. So I only have 3 months and a couple weeks to watch the other 6 on my list. Now, there are 3 that are horror or horror adjacent. So I plan to watch those in the next month here for October. And then hopefully I can finish up the next 3 by the end of the year. So hopefully you will see volume, 7 and 8, I guess, before, well, maybe not by the end of the year, but hopefully, at the latest in the first few weeks of 2026. So we will see some really good ones on the horizon, at least ones that have a lot of love behind them. So hopefully I will enjoy them as well. But anyway, most importantly, let me know what you guys think about these 3 movies down in the comments below. Are you guys a bigger fan of King Kong than I am? Was I wrong on Arrival? Is First Blood even better than I gave it credit for? Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I always appreciate any and all support down there, so thank you guys so much for that. But with that said, guys, that is going to do it for today. Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end here. I really do appreciate that. But before I let you go, I'll just encourage you all to consume some media today. Thanks again for watching, and I will catch you all next time.